Welcome to the final video series, a four-parter here in our human-computer interaction course. And this video series is about further understanding the implications and applications of HCI to information systems as a field and beyond. As we've read articles over the term, you've probably encountered vocabulary such as interaction design and user experience. If you've questioned how these relate to human-computer interaction, if they're the same or if they're different, then you're not alone. And the answers are not necessarily always straightforward, but we'll do our best to clarify that in this video. By now, you've read a lot of articles that cover various principles, guidelines, advice, suggestions, heuristics, tips, tricks, hints, and ideas to improve user interface design or user experience, or is it interaction design? Well, we've discussed all of these really under the lens of human-computer interaction, which, when you think about it, makes sense given that it's the title of this course. And while we discussed what HCI is way back in Module 1, it's been a while, and we haven't really addressed where HCI fits in a larger view. So let's see that now. If we think about the body of things that HCI covers, this actually has significant overlap with the field of interaction design, which is situated within the larger field of user experience design. Now, just what these fields are, we'll come back to in a few minutes, but there's other related fields to be aware of as well in respect to HCI, interaction design, and user experience. There is human factors, which draws from psychology and physiology. This overlaps with industrial design, that is, creating and developing concepts and specifications for physical products. Well, mostly. And also, we have the field of architecture. Interaction design also considers visual design, largely the artsy type of stuff, which further overlaps with information architecture. That is the structural design of organizing, sharing, and cataloging information environments. The field of sound design also sits over interaction design. And finally, not a field, but a consumer slash user content as a field falls within the orbit of all of this. At least, this is according to Adobe, as this is directly based off of a graphic on their website to explain the relationships between these different fields. Now, personally, I was surprised to see that marketing was left off of their graphic. So I added it here because this is clearly not complicated and confusing enough. And even if we focus back on something simple, like our little bubble of HCI, were you surprised to see it down there? Not even fully encompassed within user experience design? Well, there's not agreement across different fields even as to what HCI is. In fact, if we go back a few decades, the term human-computer interaction and computer-human interaction were two distinct fields, and in some ways they still are. But HCI tends to be the preferred term for both of these. Still, the idea here is that human-computer interaction puts the human first and is therefore very interdisciplinary, that is, drawing on fields across multiple sciences as well as the arts. Computer-human interaction is rooted much more solidly within the computing sciences. But how are they different? Let's consider an example. If you were designing a, let's say, user voice interface for a smart assistant, well, HCI focuses on those human aspects, such as understanding how people are likely to speak to their assistant and how the assistant should speak back to them. Meanwhile, computer-human interaction would focus on things like coding, on the algorithms for processing voice commands and making intelligent predictions so that the assistant appears to be understanding and chooses the correct or approximate responses to provide back to the user. Now, obviously, we need both of these in order for the smart assistant to work properly. Both versions of interaction here are academic fields of research and study, but more on academia in part 2 of this video series. For now, suffice it to say that some fields of study, some companies, some designers, think of human-computer interaction as more of the computer science-y stuff of what we would call CHI. And some think of it as more of the HCI stuff, like what we've covered with FIT. And there's plenty of folks who really kind of think of it as either both or none of the above. But with this distinction, we now understand for our purposes in this class, and we'll place both of these back within our Adobe diagram to ensure that we're covering all of our bases, which then brings us to address another important question, which we've already alluded to, and that is what the heck exactly is user experience design and interaction design? Just as we noted that there isn't wide agreement on HCI versus CHI, well, there's also different conceptualizations of these two terms. For example, a major resource in the field of practitioners, the Interaction Design Foundation, positions them as largely overlapping fields, but keeps some concepts and ideas from interaction design outside of the scope of user experience design. Other sources consider that interaction design is only part of the user experience design when we consider the user interface aspect of a technology, product, or service. To go back to our Adobe model, once again for a brief moment here, that positions user experience and interaction design within this whole host of other fields. There still have been some other attempts, aside from Adobe, to map these fields that draw on many of these same disciplines. This, for example, is a very popular graphic that is often referenced to help understand the different disciplines related to user experience design. This captures a whole host of additional fields and flushes it out even far and beyond what we've seen so far. Now, this is probably outside of the scope of what we need to consider for this course, but the reason we take a look at it is that it's, number one, helpful to be aware of, because everything we're covering in this course draws from or overlaps with many of these other fields. And secondly, different academics, different companies, different practitioners can have different understandings of what terms like HCI, interaction design, and user experience design means. So with everything we've covered so far being an enormous disclaimer, we'll go ahead with one common, oft pointed to definition for user experience design, which is that it encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So this entails shaping the experience of using a product, a big part of which is, of course, how the user interacts with the product through the interface. However, user experience covers all aspects of interaction that even extend beyond just the user interface. UX design, which is the abbreviation for user experience design, is a field of practice concerned with the entire user journey. And this includes branding, design, usability, and function. Which now brings us to interaction design. This is another field of practice, a related field of practice, which examines the interaction via an interface between a system and its user. It may also incorporate design focused on how information should be presented within a system. So while UX design includes usability, usefulness, branding, customer service, and so on, the central role of interaction design targets the movement of use and how to improve the interactive experience. In this way, it's much more closely aligned with what we've covered in respect to our academic field of human-computer interaction. So HCI as a field is what we call an academic field. That is, it's intended for us to understand how people, humans, interact with computing technologies. Now that we've addressed the user experience design aspect and the interaction design questions that we had about their relationship to human-computer interaction, in our next video, we will look at how HCI as an academic field makes contributions to the ways in which folks who design interactions or are in user experience design as a profession do their work. I know you'll want to stay tuned for that, so thanks for watching and, well, stay tuned.